Hello, and welcome to yet another Cabin Fever edition of Inch from Insanity. I apologize for being a little lax in uploading my videos lately. It's just, like with a lot of things, it's hard to get the energy up during lockdown. But I appreciate everyone that has commented and subscribed. I'm up to, at the time of this video, 21 subscribers, which is not bad. My goal is to be up to 100 by the end of the year, so please subscribe and share as much as you can. And comment, of course. I love reading comments. It really makes me believe people are watching and enjoying it. This video will be a short one for the most part. It's kind of a mini rant. It's just something that's been on my mind, and it's like I have to talk about it to get rid of it. A few months ago, I watched a new adaptation of Christmas Carol starring Guy Pearce. Uh, it, I'm not even sure where to begin with. Let's start with the little things I didn't like about it. So it's sort of a dark and gritty, because that still works, reimagining of the Charles Dickens classic, and it failed. Just gets me worked up for reasons you'll see very soon why. But again, there are so many things to make dark and gritty. A Christmas Carol, really, but could work. But few, I don't. In my personal opinion, from what I saw of it, it didn't really work. For one thing, Guy Pearce's age. I mean, not that he's a young man, depending on what your definition exactly is of young, but Scrooge is a miser. Like, he's one of those characters that has to be a certain age. He's a miser. He's an old, greedy man. And Guy Pearce is probably going to look pretty good young for a lot of times. And even if the person isn't actually old, they have to have a certain demeanor. And Guy Pearce, as good as, and I think he's underappreciated as an actor, I just don't see him portraying old and grizzled. And I mean, yeah, I guess because they jump around in different time periods, Scrooge's life, I should say, then you can have him play his younger self. But he didn't look old to me. And old, I think, is just, it just hurt. It hurt it in the long run. And there's actually something that bugged me about this adaptation, and this is purely from an acting standpoint. The guy who played Marley. Now, this is not his fault at all. This is, I mean, maybe you never know what's direction. Maybe it could be some of his fault, could be direction, whatever. But Marley it's just as famous, I think, from the story as Scrooge, or even the other spirits. He's got chains that are supposed to symbolize his sins. And the warning of his sins is like, Scrooge, you will wear a chain like this when you die if you do not change. So these are the sins of his entire life, so heavy they weigh upon him in the afterlife. And I never once got the sense watching this that this particular Marley, that his chains were heavy. It didn't feel like that at all. He walked so easily. And I've seen stage adaptations where, like, as an actor, like, in between rehearsal, you'll walk normally, but you have to, there's a certain way you would move to convey weight of emotion and physicality. So that's a fail, too. So I'm going to jump around a little bit what bugged me about it. I think I'll bring it back for the conclusion. So there's actually, now I should preface this. This is completely opinion. I can contest fully this is how it personally affected me. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch it. I'm not saying you can't watch it. I'm not saying it's unwatchable. This is why I didn't even finish it. I shut it off after one particular part, and it kind of expands to something else that bugs me. So I think that's why I want to bring it up. So I get to the part where the Ghost of Christmas Past, again, it's dark and gritty. It looks like a good set, but because it's dark and gritty, I can't see anything. There are all these great ideas they seem to be trying, but again, you can't see them. But anyway, he brings them to Scrooge to his past. And there's some interesting things they do, but again, let's get to what made me mad. So it's revealed that Scrooge's father, they go back in time to when Scrooge was at boarding school. That's just like in the books. So he goes through a Christmas past, and it turns out Scrooge's father, who is abusive, and making Scrooge's father is abusive isn't the worst idea, but it turns out Scrooge's father made a deal with the teacher or I believe headmaster, something like that, at the school, that the young Scrooge would stay at the school over Christmas break, be the only one who stays. In return, I hate even saying it, the headmaster would sexually molest Scrooge, and the father wouldn't have to pay any of the school fee. So the father was pimping out his son so he wouldn't have to deal with him or pay school fees. Nice man. Now you're thinking, oh, well, this is too dark for you. This is why you shut off. And this is not why I shut it off. I have a problem with this idea, which I'm going to get to in just a minute. But that is not what bugged me, because what happens next is, what happens next is Scrooge's sister comes in with a gun and actually saves her brother from being attacked or abused anymore. And that's a great scene. And here's where it gets stupid. The spirit says, you could not see what your sister did for you because of the darkness in your soul. And I'm telling you, I am yelling at the screen because he was sexually abused. I mean, sorry, was someone from the just get over it mentality in charge of these lines? Because, I'm sorry, the implication is that it's like Scrooge's fault that he was screwed up because he was sexually molested. I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. Like, I was abused myself, not like that, thankfully, but I do come from abuse. So, and again, this is probably why this triggered me. So if you say, oh, you're oversensitive, fair enough. Why I didn't want to watch the rest of it. But I couldn't watch any more after that. The idea that's the reason, like, Scrooge is sexually molested. Now, that's why I shut it off, because I didn't like the idea that the spirit was implying, oh, well, you should get over it. It's like, no, that's not how that works. And I want to get into especially why, not even just personally, but in my opinion, from a story aspect, why this doesn't work. Christmas Carol, for all its greatness and wonder, I mean, you gotta think, this is a story that most of us have seen a version of it by the time we're like 10. I mean, I think it was Muppet Christmas Carol, and that is still one of my favorites. But I've seen others. I've even seen TV versions where they do like modern adaptations, and they still work. Now think of it. We watch these, and of course there was the one by Disney with Mickey, and there's so many, and there's one with different characters from, like, there's probably one from every decade. They do it every few years. There's cheap versions, good versions, probably hundreds if not more. Now my point is, we watch these versions knowing pretty much, except with maybe one or two changes, exactly how it's going to end. Scrooge gets redemption. Oh wait, spoilers. I mean, if you're watching this, you haven't watched Christmas Carol yet. Come on. As much as I hate spoilers, come on. We know he's going to change. The spirits show him the error of his ways. But that's my point. For all its wonder, for all the adaptations, it's a simple story about redemption. The story is complicated, but the message is pretty simple. Like, what happened, I should say, the events are complicated because they delve into certain issues. But at its core, it's just a simple redemption story. It's like switching from one person to another. It's not easy to do so. Well, it kind of is in the story. By that I mean, okay. And this goes back to making Scrooge. Now, again, I hate when adaptations of classics think they have to add too much. Making it dark and gritty, that's another thing. But making Scrooge abused, and even sexually abused, makes it too complicated. Because in the story, Scrooge is just an old greedy man that just delved in the business and just made it all about money, became greedy. And the spirits show him what he's missing out. Like, the Ghost of Christmas Past shows him, maybe, depending on the version, why he chose that past, the Ghost of Christmas, but also some things he missed. The Ghost of Christmas Present shows what he's missing right then and there. The things that are going on, even a few doors down, things he could miss if he opens himself up to his own humanity. The Ghost of Christmas Future, of course, shows him if you don't change, what you will become, and your end, you'll be forgotten and nothing. Scrooge sees all this and decides, oh, I don't want this. I'd like to be good. And one thing I find interesting about the story is they never really say that having money is bad. They don't say being rich is bad. Not really. It's more like, the light. Sorry, just adjusting for light a little bit. Nothing but the highest technology here, Inch for Insanity. It's a simple thing that it overcomplicates it. See, Scrooge he sees all this. Again, he says, I don't want to be greedy anymore. But the reason I say it overcomplicates it is because the simple story is Scrooge, that is greedy. Again, they don't say that money is, they don't say that money is wrong. They don't say being rich is wrong. They're saying being greedy and ignoring your fellow man. Like, they're not saying in my opinion, the story's not saying it's wrong to make it in life. It's just that, like, it's Scrooge is one of these people, they never exactly say how much money he has, but it seems to be a good amount. Like, he could give a ton to charity and still enjoy the life that he has. And that's a good message for, especially in this day and age. But making child abuse a part of that taints that, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion. Because you can just, like, the story is, I don't want to be greedy anymore, so I won't. You can believe that someone could change from being greedy to not being greedy in the span of one night, even with the supernatural connection. But sexual abuse, that is not an overnight change. And even, again, I didn't watch the rest, so maybe it took longer. But even if it did, that is not, like, that's a sympathy thing. It's like, you were sexually abused as a child. Well, not really in a place to judge you then. Like, greedy is a choice. Being having post-traumatic stress disorder, not a choice. The idea that maybe I should watch the rest to get a better opinion, but this particular part just irked me in that regard. Because it just, again, simple story. Greedy man, visited by spirits, no longer greedy. Severe sexual abuse? That would take years of... And I don't know exactly what the state of therapy was in Victorian England. Actually, that would probably make a good story. Someone dealing with that back then. But again, not Christmas Carol. It makes me think, what was this? Again, a story that was something else and they shoved Christmas Carol into it. They do that a lot with different classic stories. I just think this was a mistake. It really made me uncomfortable, and I felt like venting it here on the show. You can give your opinions in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. But again, I don't know what therapy was like back then, but again, making a Christmas Carol makes no sense because, again, the story has to end a certain way, but to make that the beginning... And it's like a bad prequel when you have a character with established characteristics, feelings and emotions and backstory, and then you add some, it's like that. Scrooge is an old greedy miser. He's miserable. We get that. We don't need a further explanation. But I want to keep this rant short. I've gone a little longer than I meant to, but just, that's my opinion. It stems from the whole get over it mentality, but sexual abuse is not something you just get over. Even if I'm someone who's never had to deal with it. I have dealt with abuse, but just not that. It felt like I was watching a show tell me, you're sexually abused, Scrooge. But look at the magic of Christmas. What? Imagine explaining to someone, a therapist going, I have this patient. He was sadly sexually abused as a child, but I'm showing him the magic of Christmas to help him get over it. Everyone would be like, really? But that's just my personal opinion. You can agree with it. You can disagree with it. But that's all I will say on the subject. Thank you all for listening. And believe everything. Trust nothing.